On today's show, can Liberty's pack line defense outlast Longwood? We'll bring you highlights from the basketball game that came down to the very last second. What a week for Liberty alum Rashad Jennings. The New York Giants taking on Philadelphia Eagles at MetLife Stadium. Jennings had a season-high 170 rushing yards and 27 carries in the game. The men's basketball team with lots of exciting plays so far this year. They're keeping fans on their feet.
No doubt about that.
And I understand you used to swim back in the day.
I was a chubby little kid that liked to swim in cold water in the lakes of Canada. It was like 5 degrees. I don't know what my parents were thinking, but hey.
Yeah, that does not seem safe at all.
No, but it was still fun.
Okay, let's get to Enfuego.
Enfuego, John Dawson.
Play number 2, we bring you 2 plays from the Flames' big man, Evan Maxwell. A putback dunk off the miss from AC Reed. Hey, let's see it again.
I would like to.
And he liked that so much, he would decide to do it again later in the game also. This time off the miss from Anthony Fields, the big man providing plenty of highlights for the Flames so far this season. And hey, having said that, it's almost as if I knew Evan Maxwell would also have the #1 play this month.
Yeah, you either can see the future or you looked at the rundown.
I'm now joined by head coach Jody Murphy. Now, Jody, what's the process been like in getting that invitation and eventually deciding to join the Big East? Well, yeah, you mentioned all the strong programs. What do you think will be the biggest challenge for the girls in adjusting to the Big East?
Well, they'll fill the shoes and fill their roles.
The Flames rank first in the Big South in scoring defense, while the Eagles first in scoring offense. Liberty men's basketball opening up the 2016 calendar year back home at the Vine Center, taking on UNC Asheville. The Bulldogs currently undefeated in the Big South, while the Flames looking for the first conference win. Asheville started off hot, ahead by 16 in the first half. Second half, Bulldogs with a 22-point lead over the Flames, but Liberty rallied with a 10-0 run, cutting the lead to just 8. And check this out, 66 seconds left in the game. Anthony Fields with that reverse layup, but it wasn't enough for Liberty. Flames fall to UNC Asheville 76-69. Lavelle Cabell scored 16 points in the game.
And for more on that, let's send it down now to Britton Lynn.
Thanks, guys. Well, for Kent State, that player is Zarli Zalewski. He's batting .400 right now. When I asked Coach Jeff Duncan what makes him special, he said he just has a calming presence on the team. People really follow him. Before the game, I talked to Will Shepard, and I said, what's the motto for this team? He told me it's culture wins. What that means is they want to create a culture. They want to leave a legacy. They said the game is bigger than just us. Carson Herndon also told me that that means coming together as a brotherhood and letting that motto define them. Guys?
All right, thank you, Britt.
Coach, how do you think the team's done in controlling the pace of the game against this up-tempo Lamar team?
Britton, we haven't done much right at all.
Well, when I talked with the Liberty players before the game, one name kept coming up. That name's Shelton Stevens. Shelton Stevens is the new strength and conditioning coach for the Liberty baseball team. He joined the team in August, so only 7 months ago. Well, congrats on the win. I know Coach Green often preaches to you guys, preparation beats determination. How hard has this team worked off the court to get those 5 straight wins?
We've worked really hard.
I know you mentioned the rhythm. Ashley Reiniger back. A lot of people wondering how that would affect the rhythm of the team. How did it feel?
Let's check in with Britton Lynn.
Well, thanks, guys. So far, a chilly start to the morning over here on the field. Saw some flurries earlier, but just a few minutes away from the first pitch. Our Who's Hot player for Kent State is third baseman Dylan Rosa. And for Liberty, our Who's Hot player is Will Shepard, batting .367. Shepard's teammate said he brings a toughness to the team, holds guys accountable when he talks. Guys, listen. Nick, Matt. Right now, he's one of the top scorers for Winthrop's basketball team, but it wasn't always that way. Back in high school, he never even made the varsity team. That's because he just weighed 90 pounds, was only 5'4" as he battled Crohn's disease. Fast forward 5 years, he's coming off a 29-point game. And when I talked with him, he said he loves being able to encourage other kids in the community who are fighting the same disease he once fought. Well, Nick, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a little nervous standing in the dugout right now because these guys, they know how to pull some pranks. You saw one of them just a second ago. That's where they blow up the bubble gum and then they put it on top of someone's head until that person figures out. Well, it was about a whole inning till he figured out. He even walked out onto the field at one point with that bubble gum on. Fans taking pictures. I feel so bad for him. Coach Green, coming into the game, you told me a key for a win today would be staying focused on the defensive end. You guys have held them to 14 points in the first 2 quarters. How do you think you guys have played?
Well, obviously great on defensive end.
Ask Coach Duncan before the series started, who is the most impressive player on this team to you? He had a quick answer, Zach Beckner. Zach's been playing second base most of this series, but he said that Zach has really improved, and not only is he a good player on the field, but he really carries himself well off of it. If you haven't been around the Kent State ball program before, you might not recognize the name Mike Birkbeck, but to this school, has a lot of meaning. These players would call him a legend. Not only has he been around Kent State for 20 years, but he's also coached 6 of his former pitchers into the major league. Just a week ago, the entire team and coaching staff shaved their heads to raise awareness for cancer. The team's raised over $7,500 for the nonprofit Versus Cancer, and for one player, that moment was especially touching. The highest scoring game against a Division I opponent all season. You guys have not beat Winthrop since December 2010. What did you learn about your team tonight? Coach McKay has preached all season, we before me. How important is being unselfish to this Liberty team?
It's everything.
Well, guys, despite the youth, I talked with Coach Hendricks before the game. She told me this is the hardest working team she's ever had. They're always asking for extra film, extra shots, and the coaching staff also pretty young. They have a combined age of 140, which makes an average of 30 years old for each coach, making them the second youngest coaching staff in Division I women's basketball. Guys.
Fascinating, and it's
Let's check in once more with Britton Lynn. Britton?
Yeah, thanks, guys. I sat in on that last huddle. Heard the coaches just encouraging the guys, saying this defense is doing much better, but we really got to work on those rebounds and making sure we don't let them get that second shot.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Coach, you mentioned to me yesterday that the fast-paced offense can oftentimes have negative effects on the defense. How do you prevent that from happening?
Well, we did. We had a great...
Speaking of being there for your team, you had 22 points tonight, tying a career high, stepping up when Ashley Reiniger's been out with an injury. How much has that changed your role on the team? I think you also had another incredible experience going to Pasadena, winning a national championship.
Maybe the word bounty wasn't on it, but there were rewards for big hits and knockout shots.
So it happens everywhere. This is a big issue. It's really hurting players. What is your solution to the problem? How do you stop this?
Well,
now, 2 weeks ago, he actually tied the record when he got his 309th win against Homewood High School. 19-7, they're moving to state. Rick, JJ, back to you guys in this. Another Alabama Pro Day is in the books. All 32 teams were represented, as well as GMs from the Jets and the Giants. Today is the 3rd consecutive season that Aniana is going to be here. The past 2 seasons, the Redskins have walked away without a ring. It's Black Friday, but no one's in the malls tonight.
You know, a lot of struggles with Jameis Winston going on right now.
Yeah,
what advice would you give him?
I'm just so disappointed.
I know a lot of people have watched your dad in the public eye. They've seen his character, the players he's produced, and the impact he's had on people. What don't they know about your father?
That he really is the person in public that he is.
All right, are the helmets high school football players are using in our state as safe as they're designed to be?
As teams get ready for spring training, we're taking a closer look at the helmets that children are wearing. Britton Lynn has this On Your Side investigation.
Increased scrutiny about the safety of helmets and the long-term effects of concussions have parents concerned. Who's responsible for keeping your child safe? Here's what you need to know. There are currently no laws in the state of Alabama requiring helmets to be reconditioned and recertified. Therefore, the decision is left to the school's coach or principal. Oftentimes, a limited budget keeps the schools from spending as much as they should on helmets.
Some helmets have missing cushion. So, you know, and some coaches, I hate to say, they'll take that chance of trying to play a player without the right equipment, or they would take this out and put it into a new helmet, which this cushion doesn't belong in another type of helmet. It becomes a liability not only for that coach, it becomes a liability for that school and also that school system.
Alabama High School Athletic Association oversees the rules regarding middle school and high school football equipment. AHSAA recommends helmets be reconditioned and recertified every other year, but it's not required. We sat down with Greg Brewer, the director of officials, to help clarify.
What are the requirements for those coaches and schools in terms of middle school helmet protection?
We don't have any.
Okay, so just high school?
Not even high school.
What are the rules in terms of helmets? So there's 0 rules Because I thought
the
the rule
Federation
was...
requires, I mean, you have to wear a helmet. Yes, okay, the Federation, yes, there is a rule that says you have to wear a helmet. And the helmet has to have the four-prong chin strap. And that's the only thing that you'll see in any rule book requiring any requirement about helmets.
I'm not sure if I heard you correctly, so just clarify, but reconditioning is not required by middle schools for helmets every year or every 2 years?
Well, it's not required by us or the National Federation, but it's kind of understood that that's what's going to happen. They do it every year, whether it's required or not, because that's common sense, you know.
Unfortunately, that's not the case. We found at least one school that said they wait as long as 3 years before helmets are reconditioned and recertified, which means those helmets are more likely to have cracks, missing parts, or be past their 10-year mark. We also found multiple schools where records were lost because of a changeover of coaches, something we also asked AHSAA about.
It's up to the person who's in charge of the school, which is the principal, to make sure that he or she hires competent people.
In late January, we sent a records request to every public school in the state, asking for their helmet records. Because helmets are purchased and recertified with tax dollars, there should be a record of those purchases. But since January, only 6 schools have shared their records. They are Pike County, Goshen, Enterprise, Albertville, Athens, Alex City, Wicksburg, Leeds, and Homewood. And we'll continue to petition the schools for this information and add it to our database on myfoxal.com and the WBRC app as it comes in. In the meantime, we encourage you to ask questions. Find out when your child's helmet was last reconditioned and recertified. And tomorrow night, we'll show you about the cleanliness of these helmets, what you need to do to keep them germ-free.
Welcome to Hartmont Park Stadium.
There's something just in the nature of the game that you don't get in anything else. It's going to grab hold of you because it's just got it. There's so much raw emotion, raw passion, and it's so much of what we're missing in society.
Humble, joyful, quiet. Words not often associated with football. But Kai Christianberry isn't your typical athlete.
Good, Kai! Yeah, that a kid!
Only Kai can lift up his teammates without saying a word.
Eagle pride. I'm deaf.
The fact that Kai even chose to play.
Why?
Despite the difficulty of communicating with his teammates, is one miracle.
You know, I'll look at the safety or the interpreter on the sideline.
But even more amazing is that Kai is here.
We got a phone call about Kai saying he was this amazing 13-year-old boy that was going to have nowhere to live very soon, and would we consider bringing him home?
153 million orphans estimated worldwide. It was only 3 years ago when Kai was living that statistic.
In China, families reject their deaf kids. If they have a deaf child, they don't want them. They don't like deaf people. They take them to the orphanage. They just get rid of them.
Less than a year away from his 14th birthday, time was running out.
They generally age out of the system, and so that means they no longer have a place to live.
He would just basically be out on the streets at 14, 15 years of age to fend for himself, to beg, if he was lucky, get some sort of factory job.
That's when the Christianberry family opened their home.
Sometimes you just know something is right.
And then the football team is also like a family, like brothers and sisters.
When we just take a look at the guy sitting beside us and thinking, man, you know, this guy was in an orphanage in China and he's fixing to get kicked out, and it's, you know, that argument I had with my parents doesn't seem like such a big deal anymore, or doing poorly in that test, or Susie breaking up with me, all that stuff. I mean, it's not, it really tends to minimize our troubles.
From never having seen the game of football.
That's part of the whole new world thing. It's like being at Disney World every day.
To changing his teammates' perspective.
There's somebody that our kids see on a daily basis and they say, well, good gracious, you know, Look at everything that this kid's had to come through to get to the point that he's at, and then look at the hurdles that he still has to jump just to compete with us, and he doesn't let it phase him.
After only a few months of playing,
yeah, that was pretty amazing.
Kai did more than his team could have ever imagined.
Sorry, one of the neatest things that happened was during we've got a preseason inter-squad scrimmage that we do over at the stadium, and he recovered a fumble.
And I saw the football, and I went after it, and I got it, and I was really happy.
When he got up, he was so excited that he screamed and made sound, and that was a cool deal.
He spoke.
You know, he does something that's impossible. Well, that makes our challenges look pretty, minute, and our hurdles are down here.
I'm very proud.
Now Kai's teaching his teammates what many of them had forgotten.
We tell our kids, just enjoy what you're doing. Don't hold anything back. Just go do it, and he does it.
One smile at a time.
And he doesn't take anything for granted. It's something I will always treasure. I will treasure the time I get to coach him, because it is it's not everybody gets this opportunity.
Now you're wearing number 32, but you said number 1 is your favorite. Why?
Because one deaf person on the team.
Eagles, you got me! Yes, sir!
Britton Lynn, Fox 6 News.
1, 2, 3, 4, let's go!